This is the 6'6" problem waiting for Caitlin Clark in Seattle. Dominique Malonga's dunk at the 2026 WNBA All-Star Game captured the crowd, but Indiana's bigger concern appeared 8 days earlier. Malonga scored 28 points and grabbed 14 rebounds against the Fever. Indiana still needed the first 45-point, 10-assist performance in WNBA history from Clark to escape with a 110-107 victory. The teams are scheduled to meet again in Seattle on July 28th, and that gives Indiana a problem no record-breaking box score can erase. Clark delivered her greatest WNBA scoring night, yet the Fever finished one possession from losing. The reason starts with Malonga. On July 25th, a record All-Star crowd of 19,783 packed the United Center in Chicago. Team Spoon defeated Team Coop 129-122. Jonquel Jones won the Most Valuable Player award, Clark hit 5 three-pointers, and Kelsey Mitchell led every scorer with 28 points. Then Malonga produced the play that shook the building. Angel Reese controlled the ball near the top of the floor while Malonga accelerated through an open lane. Reese delivered the pass. Malonga gathered it, rose with her right hand, and drove the ball through the rim. It was the first dunk in a WNBA All-Star Game since Sylvia Fowles did it in 2022. That placed Malonga on a short list that includes Lisa Leslie, Brittany Griner, Jonquel Jones, and Fowles. She finished the night with 12 points and 13 rebounds. After the game, Malonga explained that she'd planned the moment only in the broadest sense. "I knew I had to at least try in this game," she said. The lane appeared, she called for the ball, and Reese found her. Malonga attacked before the defense could remove the opening. The sequence lasted only a few seconds, but it displayed the physical problem Indiana must prepare for. Malonga doesn't need a long post-up or a complicated set to bend the floor. Give her one clear runway, one accurate pass, and 2 steps, and she can finish above the rim. The All-Star defense offered little resistance, so the dunk can't predict what will happen in Seattle. But here's the thing. It focused attention on a player whose regular season production had already moved far beyond novelty. Seattle selected Malonga with the 2nd overall pick in the 2025 draft. She earned all-rookie honors during her first WNBA season. By July 7, 2026, the Storm listed her at 15.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks per game, all part of a season filled with career highs. She'd also become the youngest 30-point scorer in league history after scoring 37 against Dallas on June 22nd. WNBA general managers noticed that rise before All-Star Weekend. In the league's 2026 survey, Malonga tied for the highest share of votes as the player most likely to have a breakout season. When those executives were asked which player they would choose to start a franchise, she finished behind only Paige Bueckers, Caitlin Clark, and A'ja Wilson. The dunk didn't create Malonga's rise. It gave the public one sharp image of a rise that was already underway. Malonga described the change after the All-Star Game. Her role in Seattle had expanded. She'd become a starter and one of the first options in a rebuilding offense. Her focus was efficiency near the basket. "I wanted to focus on the efficiency this year," she said. The July 17th meeting with Indiana showed what that focus could produce. Seattle entered Gainbridge Fieldhouse with 6 wins and a young roster. Indiana had already beaten the Storm 89-78 on May 17th when Malonga was unavailable because of a concussion. The next meeting looked like another chance for the Fever to collect a home victory. Instead, Seattle scored 107 points. Malonga made 13 of her 22 field goal attempts. She scored 28 points, collected 14 rebounds, and forced Indiana into a game that Clark had to rescue with one of the most productive individual performances the league has recorded. Clark scored 45 points. She made 6 three-pointers, recorded 10 assists, and became the first WNBA player to combine at least 40 points with at least 10 assists in one game. 45 points should create distance. 10 assists should mean the rest of the offense received enough quality chances to create distance too. Indiana won by 3. That margin is the story. Malonga didn't cause every Indiana problem by herself. Seattle received production from across its young lineup. Awafam scored 16 points, grabbed 9 rebounds, and made 4 of her 5 attempts from beyond the arc. The Storm created pressure from more than one location. Still, Malonga's 28 points and 14 rebounds established the center of the matchup. Indiana couldn't treat her as a developing player who might punish 1 or 2 mistakes. She became one of the main forces shaping the game. Her height matters, but height alone doesn't explain the pressure. Plenty of tall players struggle to convert size into useful possessions. They arrive late, catch the ball too far from the basket, or need several seconds to organize their footwork. Malonga compresses those steps. She runs the floor, establishes position, and presents a target above smaller defenders. When she receives the ball close to the rim, Seattle has already won the most valuable part of that possession. It has won the distance. That's why Indiana's first responsibility in the rematch begins before Malonga catches the ball. The Fever must control the floor early enough to keep her from turning transition into a straight line. Once a defender retreats beneath the rim, the angle is gone. A late switch can leave a guard fighting a center who is 7 or 8 inches taller. Help that arrives after the pass may stop the first attempt, but it can also release a rebound directly into Malonga's reach. Her 14 rebounds on July 17th meant her influence didn't end with the first shot. Indiana's defensive possession wasn't finished when it forced a miss. The possession ended only after the Fever secured the ball. That distinction becomes dangerous against a young Seattle team willing to play through errors. One extra possession can become a layup. A second can force Indiana to rotate its front court. A third can change how aggressively Clark and the Fever guards release into transition. The next problem is the space around Malonga. Fam's 4 three-pointers in the previous meeting matter because they complicate Indiana's most obvious response. The Fever can crowd the paint, send another defender toward Malonga, and deny the catch. That choice may leave a shooter open outside. If Indiana stays attached to Seattle's perimeter players, Malonga receives more room to seal, roll, or rebound. When the Fever collapse, Seattle can move the ball toward the space the help defender abandoned. Seattle's structure can be beaten. The Storm lost the first game and entered the break near the bottom of the standings. Young teams often produce explosive possessions without sustaining them for 4 quarters. But a poor record doesn't remove a bad matchup. Seattle didn't have to prove it was a championship team on July 17th. It only had to show that its strengths could attack Indiana's weaknesses. Scoring 107 points and losing by 3 established that. The third problem is the cost placed on Clark. The first meeting asked her to create 45 points and assist on more. That isn't a sustainable defensive plan. It's an emergency escape. Clark can punish Seattle from beyond the arc. She can pull 2 defenders toward the ball, then hit the release pass. One screen can produce several outcomes because defenders must respect her shooting range before she approaches the three-point line. Seattle experienced all of that and still remained 1 possession away. So the rematch has a different purpose. Indiana doesn't need Clark to prove she can score against the Storm. 45 points settled that. The Fever must prove they can lower the burden required to win. That responsibility belongs to the entire roster. Indiana's front court must meet Malonga before she reaches her preferred space. The guards must disrupt entry passes without losing Seattle's shooters. Every Fever player near the lane has to rebound, as if the first defensive contest completed only half the possession. Indiana must also decide how much offensive pressure it can place on Malonga. A young center forced to defend repeated screens, recover toward Clark, and protect the rim must process several threats at once. Clark's range can pull an interior defender away from the basket. Aaliyah Boston's screening and short roll passing can strain the next rotation. Kelsey Mitchell's speed can punish a defense whose attention drifts toward Clark. Those tools give Indiana an answer, but only when the Fever connect them to the work at the other end. Trading baskets favors the more explosive offense until one cold stretch arrives. Indiana survived that equation on July 17th because Clark produced a record. Seattle can improve its position in the rematch without stopping her. It can attack the paint, extend possessions, and force the Fever to chase the scoreboard again. That's the strategic tension. Malonga isn't Clark's direct assignment for an entire game, and this isn't a personal rivalry. They create pressure in opposite ways. Clark expands the court. Her shooting range drags defenders farther from the basket than they want to travel. Malonga shrinks it. Her size and finishing pull help toward the rim before the defense can recover. When those forces meet, each team tries to make the opponent surrender the more damaging space. The All-Star dunk gave Seattle another clue about Malonga's ceiling. It also gave Indiana fresh evidence of what happens when she finds a clear runway. Malonga didn't pause beneath the rim and search for a safer finish. She went above it. That choice guarantees nothing for July 28th. An exhibition lane isn't a regular season lane, and an All-Star defense isn't a prepared Fever defense. The competitive evidence came 8 days earlier. 28 points, 14 rebounds, 13 made field goals, and a 3-point final margin despite 45 points and 10 assists from Clark. And Indiana shouldn't treat the rematch as a chance for Clark to repeat history. Repeating history would mean the Fever failed to reduce the price of victory. The better outcome is quieter. Indiana makes earlier contact with Malonga, denies extra possessions near the rim, finishes defensive rebounds, and gives Clark enough control to decide the game without demanding another league record. The official injury report still matters before the matchup. No responsible preview can assume Clark, Malonga, Boston, or another key player will appear until the teams confirm their status. The scheduled game creates the clock. Confirmed availability decides the final version of the matchup. If the principal players are cleared, Seattle will get a rare second test. The Storm can face the same opponent only 11 days after pushing Indiana to the final possession. Their young center enters with a larger public profile, a first All-Star appearance, and a national highlight attached to her name. Indiana enters with the victory, the record, and the harder question. July 17th may have been an isolated shootout. It may also have exposed an interior problem that Clark's 45 points managed to cover. The standings favor Indiana. The first result says Seattle can keep the game close. The rematch will show whether the Fever learned anything from the 28 points and 14 rebounds that nearly erased a historic night. Clark scored 45. Malonga answered with 28 and 14. Indiana escaped by 3. The problem is waiting in Seattle.